Hi, I'm Rich Santos, and welcome to my 2020 road bike build. Today we're going to check out the process of building a bike up to just over 17 pounds at a cost of just over $1,100. As usual, I'm going to talk about the parts I used and the weights of each and how that combines to make the bike that we see here. But before we go into too much detail, I do owe a few seconds to talk about my previous road bike. The reason I'm building this bike is to replace my old school Bottecchia Sprint CF78. This bike I love. It's from about 2005 and it still runs fantastic. I have babied this bike. I love this bike. I could go on and on and on about how much I love this bike, but at the end of the day, time moves on. I wanted something possibly a little lighter, possibly a little bit more aerodynamic. So in order to build the new bike on such a budget, I did have to make some rather controversial choices, and I'm not afraid of this. By the way, the Bottecchia weighed in at just over 19 pounds. So I'm trying to improve performance, improve weight. I'm going to track my component weights and prices. I'm aiming for under $1,250, and that's actually functionally $750 out of pocket for me. And in truth, it was just time to build another bike. All right, so straight to eBay we go. We buy the BXT Carbon Cyclocross frame fork seat post headset seat clamp package for $296.38 shipped. That's a lot of stuff. This is all carbon fiber, full carbon fiber, seat post, full carbon fiber, fork and steerer, BSA threaded, 53 centimeter frame size, cyclocross geometry. Yeah, here we go. The frame weighs in at 1,034.4 grams. That includes the bolts. The derailleur hanger clamp was an extra, 20.8 grams. And I included, those internal cable sleeves, and everything you see in front of you was in that weight of 1,034.4 grams. Is it a risk buying Chinese carbon frame from an unknown, quote-unquote, unknown manufacturer? Absolutely. Have I done it before? Yes. Do I mind the risk? No. Do you? I'm not you. But this frame looks pretty good to me. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm just looking for a build that's on a budget and can be done reasonably well. It's a tapered head tube, 44 to 56 millimeter, internal cable routing. This is, I guess, the matte finish. And like I said, 53 centimeter size. And it does come with the seat post clamp, comes with the derailleur hanger, comes with the front derailleur band clamp as well. And I did want to check the size for tires, since road has been going bigger and bigger tires. I bought 25C tire width for this, and they fit easily. I don't know if 28s could fit, even though these measurements make it look a lot more generous. But once you actually wedge a tire in there, the space disappears. So the fork weighs in at 356.6 grams. That's completely uncut. I did end up cutting a little bit off of it, but I didn't re-weigh it. And it is set up for quick release skewers, the front and rear of the bike. And they look pretty well done. Here's our headset. The provided headset was 127.7 grams. That's the internal headset and the fork expander plug. So that's everything that came with that basically $300 frame package. And now I'm going to start to build it up. So first thing I'm going to do is put on some carbon fiber grip paste onto the seat post so that I can insert my seat post, and then I can hold it onto my work stand, properly by clamping the seat post and not the expensive and fragile carbon fiber frame. So now we have it mounted and ready to start to build. Oh, and I didn't mention the seat post. It was 273.6 grams. Here we have the headset crown race, slap on some grease. And so I should mention, this is obviously not a how-to video, but I will be showing some of the quote-unquote action shots of the build itself. So crown race, lower headset bearing, these go right into the frame. Here's the stem I used. This was a $15 eBay find. It's from a company called Pura Radza. It's 110 millimeter at 6 degree stem, and it weighed in at 147.1 grams. Then I'm going to add some carbon fiber stem spacers. These are good to have. They do match that stem pretty nicely. They cost just about $6.50, and a total, if I used them all, of 30 grams. Didn't use them all. Now we're going to put the fork on. We're going to add the upper headset and the top cap. Right now, I'm not actually worrying about doing this perfectly. I just want to get the fork in place with some spacers and my stem so that I can then build some other parts like the crankset so that I can work on getting the fit right so that I can cut the fork down to size. So right now, it's just kind of preliminarily putting stuff in place to, first of all, have it start to feel like a frame and fork, and then also to begin to work on the bike fit. So this is just a loose attachment. I'm not worrying about bearing tension or anything like that. So in order to work on the actual fit, I'm going to look at my wheel set next. I'm using Alex A-Class ALX 470s. They cost $180 and weigh in at just over 1,750 grams. That includes the skewers and the rim tape. I've had these for a few years. They were on the Batekia. They run really smooth. They're pretty robust. I've had no issues with them. Again, I don't own carbon fiber. I don't own high-end wheels, so I cannot compare them. All I know is that they work well for me. So now we're going to move on to the group set choice, and this is how I saved some money. This is controversial. It's unproven. I'm using the Sensah Empire 2x11 group set bought from eBay for $280, and this comes with all of what we see here. This includes the 2x11 shifter/brake levers, an 11 to 34 11-speed cassette, the bottom bracket, the crankset, which is 170 millimeter crank arms, the front and rear brake, the front and rear derailleur, and the derailleur hangers. The shifters, you saw the weights right there, just over 255 grams each. They shift using a SRAM-ish style shift mechanism, single bladed lever. Honestly, they look really nice and they feel really nice. That little subtle finishing on the hoods actually feels pretty good in the hand. They're kind of narrow at the tops. I quite like the cassette. I love the fact that it's an 11 to 34. I love climbing range, but I want to go a little bit bigger, and the step from this one goes from a 28 to a 34, so it's kind of like you're slapped on a granny gear. I would like to go to a 36, but also on my road bike now, I use a 32 tooth a lot for climbing, and so that's something I'd like to have. So I will probably go with an 11 to 36 tooth 11 speed at some point. The group set came with a chain, but I used a KMC 11 speed for an extra $20.42, which was what, 262.9 grams. I don't know, I just used my chain and not their chain. The bottom bracket, pretty standard, 97 grams. It does have one spacer that I ended up using on the drive side. Yep, this is for your standard BSA threaded bottom bracket. It went in super smooth. The threading on the frame was great. No issues. One of the easiest installs I've ever had. The crankset is a 713.5 gram weight. Looks really good. I don't know why they call it hard rock. I have no idea, but the machining on it looks really good. This is a compact crankset, 50, 34 rings. I think it's all one piece, so I don't think you could change the chain rings, but at this cost, just get a new one if you needed to. They sell these separately, by the way. Yeah, looks really good, feels strong. It is aluminum. It's not a carbon fiber crank, and again, I have 170 millimeter crank arms on this. And then we've got the brakes. The front was 189.8, the rear was 185.5. I had those reversed. Pretty bog standard rim brakes. I am going to replace the pads with some Cool Stop Dura 2s, the brakes that I put on pretty much all my road bikes. It's just something that once you trust them, you use them. These are $8.20 per pack for a total of an extra $16.40 in peace of mind. And then we've got our derailleurs, the RD plus the extender for 211.8 grams, and the front derailleur for 96.4 with its clamp for 20.8 grams. Again, unproven group set, but the machining looks pretty solid on these. The springs feel good. Again, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe I should do a review video of the group set once I've ridden it a little bit. So this concludes the bulk of the parts and the weights for the bike. Now we're going to get into the build phase. There will be some extra parts, the finishing touches later on, but that's the bulk of it for the frame set and the group set. So I wanted to add the bottom bracket, And the crank set, again, the first few steps here, my goal was to work on getting the parts I needed in order to work on my fit. So with the BB in and the crankset running nice and smooth, it was time to transition on, and I was just going to mount the brakes real quick, but first I wanted to slap on the cool stop pads. So now it's time to put some rubber on my tires. I went with Continental Grand Prix 4000 S2s, 700 by 25C. I've had these in stock for a while. They were meant to go on the other bike. I didn't weigh them. They're spec'd at 225 grams each, and they cost something in the ballpark of $80 for a pair. I have a bunch of inner tubes. I didn't buy specifically for this. I just used what was in the wheel set previously. I get my tubes in bulk, so it was probably about $5 per inner tube. Just pay attention to your valve length. You want to make sure your valve is long enough to go through whatever rim you have. My rims, I think, are 30 millimeter or 26 millimeter, and I probably should have longer valves, but they're manageable.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard, and I wonder where you are. Mysterious, that's the part you always show, 'cause you're...
This wheel set is 11 speed ready, so it's a simple process of just putting on the cassette, which I think the first 7 or 8 were aluminum machined together, and then the last 2 or 3 free gears, free sprockets, and then just the lock ring with a little bit of grease and some significant force to crank down, and your cassette is going to be good to go. And at this point, it's starting to feel like progress is being made. So then I wanted to move on and put my pedals on to, again, work towards getting my fit for the cockpit area. So I used cheap Venzo pedals, 256.3 grams per pair. They cost me $19. These are Look Keo style pedals, so they're replaceable with any of the Look Keo style pedals, which there's a fair amount of on the market. And on they go. Don't forget to grease up those pedal threads if you're going to be taking pedals on and off with any regularity, or, well, in general. And then it's time to pick a saddle. I have a box full. I actually think saddles are personal preference. You can spend a lot on saddles. I've chosen to go budget, as I do with everything. I still have a few choices in the budget realm, but I tend to gravitate back to these cheap Vertu plastic saddles on just your basic rails. They look intimidating at first, but I found them to be actually really comfortable, really durable, and super easy to maintain. You know, I cannot extol the virtues of these saddles enough. I'm going to use this red one. It looks a little atrocious, I'm not going to lie, but whatever. I've got multiple other ones because they cost like $8 or $10 on eBay on any given day, and they're light. Like this one is 172.8 grams. And I have it on my gravel bike, my road bike, my backup road bike, every bike, because it's a great saddle. I'm just showing here how I measure my fit. So I go from the center of the BB to the middle of my saddle, and then from my top of my pedal spindle to the top of my saddle. I'm 5'6". Those are my measurements. You're probably taller. So the handlebars I used are from Platt Spline Concept, 195.6 grams. Got them for $30. They are a 400 millimeter width, and what are they, 130 drop, and I think 80 reach, full carbon, yep, 80 reach, 130 drop, and a 3-degree flare. And they feel nice, they're lightweight, not a brand I know of either, but I got them on eBay, and I don't know, hopefully they'll be good. So now that I had a saddle, pedals, and handlebars mounted, I could quickly do an approximate fit for the bike. So I put on a few spacers, and then I was able to chop down my fork steerer down to size. Now what I did is I have the stem slammed down, but I do have a significant amount of spacers beneath. That gives me some play for the future to adjust my fit, but I kind of like how it looks. As I, I'm not the leanest, raciest guy right now, so as I hopefully get leaner, I can probably take some length off there. Then you've got your expander plug. I did spend a whole $2 on a red top cap because I can, and it looks a little better than the standard black. And now it's time to do the shift and brake levers. These are just a process of getting mounted to a comfortable position for you, so I like to have it on the ground and then use a level to make sure they're in a good spot. These things look nice. Then it was time for the derailleurs. Front derailleur with the clamp and rear derailleur with the derailleur hanger extender. One thing I like to do before I get the chain on is to set my derailleur limits. So I make sure I, move the derailleur through its play and set your limits ahead of time before you mess around with the chain. Again, here's that KMC chain. I'm just going to thread it through and size it. I sized it using the small to small around the derailleur. You can look up multiple ways to size your chain on a new bike. Yeah, you can't go wrong, but in this case, what I'm trying to do is I want the chain in its loosest condition to just pull that rear derailleur to make sure it has tension on it. That's the philosophy behind this style of sizing. I like how modern chains now use master links of some kind to hold them together. The 11, 12 speed, even 10 speed, sometimes it helps to have a tool to click them in. I found that 8 on 9 speed systems, they're easy to do by hand, but for some reason these newer master links, you kind of need that tool. And now we've got a chain. When it comes down to cables and housings, for this build, I should have gone with something better, but I wanted to stay budget oriented. I have a whole bunch of spare parts, so this is just stuff I had in the bin. Each of these sets was about $10 from eBay. Basic complete brake system, basic complete road system, but I would have probably spent the extra, like those were $10 each for a total of 20. You can get this Road Pro complete kit, which I've had in my bin for years and I've been saving, but you can get this for like $30. Should have put that on. I didn't. Again, I don't care. I work on a lot of other bikes. I have spares all over the place. But if you're doing this for yourself one time and you don't have a bunch of stuff lying around, get a complete nice kit with the Kevlar and the coated housings and all the good stuff. Do it right for a minimal extra cost. And now we're going to work on the brakes. So once we get the brake cables situated properly, get the pads adjusted, get the cables at the proper tension, have everything satisfactory, it's time to clip those cables, put on some bling, and move on to some of our finishing touches. So bar tape is one of those worlds where you can go nuts. This was a super cheap $8 set of bar tape. I got it on Amazon. It's like 76.2 grams for the entire set. It actually, I don't have the highest hopes. And then I wanted to go with bar end plugs. These were like $6, 19 grams. I like the screw-in bar end plugs I just feel like they A, look a little better, and B, have a little bit more security than the old push-in plugs. And there's the tape. It doesn't look so bad, I just don't know how long it will last. In fact, I think it looks really good. For bottle cages, I reached into the bin and I found these XLC plastic ones, $20 cost, and they're really light, like, what was that, like 58 grams combined. And then I always have a frame pump. This is a 115.5 gram Shimano frame pump, cost 20 bucks. And I always use a speed and cadence sensor. This is the Wahoo Blue, costs about 65 bucks, Bluetooth and plus. If you have a power meter, which I don't, you probably don't need that. And then I always have a saddlebag. This is not included in the total weight, but always bring a bag with some of your spare kit on any road ride. So again, the Bottecchio was 19.26 pounds, and moment of truth, the new bike comes in at 17.54 pounds. I did that a bunch of times. It was always just about 17.5 pounds, but that's including those extras. So that kind of wraps up the build, guys. I hope you enjoyed this style of walkthrough of the build process. If you have any questions or comments about my rationale for the choices I made, or ways you could save weight, or different things you could have done, I would love to enter into a discussion with you guys. Otherwise, here's a few seconds of enjoyment of the project. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again. Take care.